conservative state that, by the way, already has the most amount of restrictions existing on abortion and access to abortion. So this is a test case for the right wing. They're trying to get to Roe. That's where they ultimately want to go with these ballot measures. But in some places, they may just be a bit too much for voters.
And in all these ballot initiatives, and we're going to show a series of maps now for our TV viewers, for radio listeners. You can go to our website to see them at democracynow.org. You've got the states that have these initiatives, and then the ones with the ban sign, the prohibition sign, are the ones where the initiative actually failed to get on the ballot.
It was in several states where they failed, and that that's what I think is many of these ballot measures come down to. In fact, there was 29 right-wing initiatives that were poised to be on the ballot 8 months from now, or 8 months ago, where they just failed to take fire at the signature gathering stage, and that's remarkable. I've been tracking and working on ballot measures for over 7 years, and I've never seen where they have momentum and money that they actually fail to qualify. And that's because I believe many of these extreme measures are exactly that, extreme. And these right-wing efforts on the ballot to divide and distract voters are just not what people want in a change versus more of the same kind of election.
Can you talk about ballot initiatives involving workers, Kristina Wilfore?
Well, there are several. The workers and the voice of workers and political participation of workers has been under attack in several states. Colorado, I just got back from last night, where there are 3 ballot measures that are a mix of what's called right to work. We call it right to work for less, paycheck deception, and a new version of that called open and clean. There are several similar measures in Oregon. There's also this so-called open and clean, which has to do with limiting who can participate in political campaigns if they have a sole source contract with the state. But essentially it's aimed at labor, although in this case in South Dakota, even the Chamber of Commerce opposes it because it goes after business interests too. Much of these efforts, I think, we'll have to see how they turn out, but I believe the anti-labor forces out there may want to be careful about what it is they do to sort of pull the tail of the tiger here and activate union members around these very, divisive issues. And, I think that we'll see more political sort of consequences of giving labor an excuse to be even that much more organized in these states, where they're, I believe, going to have some significant victories politically. So, these measures are out of step with what we know we need in an economy that's struggling right now. They go against the interests of building economic security and support for workers. And I think voters will see it that way.
The education initiatives, can you describe what they are, where they are?
Well, there are not as many education measures. Vouchers was ultimately kicked off the ballot in Florida. That would have been the most significant fight. They keep going back state after state, even though we're winning those. In Oregon, however, you have the elimination of bilingual education, which is a difficult measure, but is looking to be out of sync with what even Oregonians say that they want. There's some local levies, and those are going to be tough fights in a tight economy, but those are the most significant. In addition to Colorado, actually, where they're doing a fix of their very restrictive TABOR system, Taxpayer Bill of Rights, that would create a separate account for education called the SAFE initiative.
What about health care?
Healthcare is fascinating, and when we did research among swing voters earlier in the cycle and really talked to them about a wide variety of ballot measures of interest, it was healthcare and clean energy that had the most intensity behind it. And so you have a variety of measures that are attempting to give access and that don't necessarily have huge price tags. From the stem cell research, allowing stem cell research for cures in Michigan, home care measure in Missouri and Washington State that creates an authority to give and provide long-term and children's home care. You've got the Children's Health Care Initiative in Montana, which also really relates to what we see federally on this issue. This is the first measure, and this is my home state, not wildly progressive in Montana, but we've got Schweitzer and Tester, and you've got some interesting dynamics happening there. And while the anti-choice initiative, the abortion ban, failed to qualify, you had this embraced by voters at the signature gathering stage. So that, I think, tells you what this dynamic, this election is sizing up to be. And you even have Senator Baucus saying, look, if we do this in Montana and if we pass children's health care in a red state, this means that we need to go into the first 100 days of Congress and go after S-chip again, which was vetoed by Bush last spring. You also have Death with Dignity, which provides opportunity for terminally ill patients to take their own choices around their terminal illness in Washington State, and a couple other, smaller under the radar efforts that really are sort of significant, I believe, in what we want and what we see voters really wanting some progress on.
The issue of energy, Kristina Wilfore, who heads up the Ballot Initiative Strategy Center, California, Colorado, Missouri.
I think we're going to have more of a mixed bag, and certainly if you look at the California measures, there's some controversy within that. But just the existence of this, we've never seen as many energy measures on the ballot before, and I think this relates to the fact that it connects to nearly everything that is important to voters this cycle: independence and freedom, the economy and jobs, security, a clean environment. What is clearly have shifted from what were more traditional, just environmental sort of issues to this being a broader, that's connected to broader sort of themes. So you have the alternative fuels measure in California, with also the clean and solar energy. The T-Boo Boone Pickens measure is getting a lot of attention because of the component of the state buying bonds. But the Missouri measure we've spent a lot of time on, which is a clean energy, setting up renewable portfolio standards. What was fascinating is that the polling showed that to be against that measure increased a candidate's negatives. So it was one of the most important reasons in defining candidates. And that's what a lot of these initiatives can do. Does it provide some ability to distinguish between candidates given their support or opposition of it? So being for it, really put a different sort of take on the candidate, that they were forward-thinking, they were interested in jobs and security for the state. And so it's played out that level to some degree with some of the tighter state legislative races in Missouri.
Well, I want to thank you, Kristina Wilfore, for joining us and giving us that map of the ballot initiatives around the country, Executive Director of the Ballot Initiative Strategy Center. And thanks very much to Richard Kim at the Nation Institute. And we'll be working with the Nation tonight on our 5-hour coverage of this historic election. Stay with us.
Thank you.